Hello, welcome back to Bus Stops. Today we're going to talk about a picture taken at a bus stop in the GRTC system. And of course, as usual, it will be chosen at random, stopping at a certain point with my eyes closed. Today we are talking about this photo. Okay, so this photo was taken near the airport here in Richmond, Virginia. One of the most efficient airports in the country, I've heard. And indeed, if you do come visit our fair Richmond, if you're leaving by plane, you'll get through security faster than almost anywhere else in the country, or so I'm told. Anyway, good experiences there. Good airport. All right. This photo has one of my favorite things in it, and that is what looks like an emergency alert klaxon. I have a strong affinity for alert sirens, and this one doesn't look operational. It almost looks like maybe the guts were taken out there at some point. But I had an idea, if you'll forgive a brief tangent. I had a great idea, a horrible idea, but great in my mind, of a art piece where it's like a box, just maybe like a waist high cube made out of some indeterminate material, but it's painted all like white or just gray or something all over. And the only visible thing on the outside of the box is a light switch. And maybe it says emergency switch. I was undecided on that point, but it'd be in the off position. So something indicating that it is off. And then when turned on, the inside of the box would contain something similar to this, some kind of klaxon, some kind of great alerting siren. And the switch would close a circuit to a car battery. And it was just a one-directional switch. So once you turned it on, it just kept it blaring. Of course, it would be obscured inside the box, but would be so loud that it would be impossible to be near it until the battery ran dry. I never made that. I did a lot of research into these sirens. You can buy them on eBay or whatever. But for a variety of reasons, not the least of which was not wanting the cops to be called on me or not wanting to be kicked out of school. I didn't do that. Probably another one of the big reasons is that those are $150 minimum, which was a lot of money to me at the time. So still pretty much is. But so this klaxon, this siren, klaxon isn't the right word. I should stop calling it that. This emergency alert system thing. Horn, the horn of danger is almost in the middle of the frame. It's not quite, which throws me off a little bit. There's actually a lot of the vertical lines in this image, which I do think has been edited. So I think I've already fussed with this one a bit, but the vertical lines of this image throw me off a lot. And so there's a lot of uneasiness within this image kind of built into it almost, despite kind of the warm, sunny day of the picture. It is like a summer's day that I took this. It was a very warm day. So I think some of that warmth is even still present in the image. Kind of that particular type of cloud where the underside of it is kind of like a hazy gold, like the edges are kind of raggedy. I think that is a very characteristically summer cloud, because I think humidity and everything in Virginia especially can sort of cause the undersides of clouds to be a hazy smear like that. So to me, this sort of cloud just screams summer. Nonetheless, I do remember when I took this picture, it was a hot day. So yeah, there is warmth in this picture. Like I say, the leaves are full, robust, and yet there is uneasiness within this picture to my eye and to my mind. Primarily, we have the foreground element, which is out of focus. I tried to avoid taking, there are a few pictures we'll talk about that are nonetheless just kind of an abstract geometric composition of the telephone pole, like the wire against the sky or whatever. That's an easy picture to take, especially in a series like this. But I nonetheless had to resort to it occasionally for lack of anything else that was speaking to me compositionally. This isn't quite that. Of course, that is a foregrounded element, but I think for whatever reason I chose to have that be partially out of focus. I obviously could have shot at a wider depth of field, or like a narrower aperture and a wider depth of field in order to try to get both of those things in focus. But I really wanted to like hone in on this thing. I don't think I had like a clear enough shot to really get at it, like with a telephoto or something. It almost looks like a bee's nest or something inside of there. And so I chose to try to highlight it by throwing the foreground out of focus and putting that basically in the center of the frame. If memory serves, I think I wanted the composition to balance out a little bit. And so we kind of have this motion where this brick is obviously very sharp and in focus. This this bush kind of starts to skew out of focus slightly. It's sharp enough, but not sharp. Not sharp in the same way as the horn is. And so the horn is the crispy, tackiest, like tack sharp is what I mean, element of the frame. And so that's kind of what I wanted the eye to focus and rest on. And so I was content with the rest of the frame going into this sort of uneasy, semi-focused state. And yet, nonetheless, this infrastructure, this grid sort of breaks up the frame into its various parts. And so I think kind of the rustiness of the alert system and even the slight degradation of the elements of this telephone power pole, other than being out of focus, of course, we do see like rust. We see rusty wires. We see like that, to my eye, is like an old style of telephone infrastructure that might even be cut off at one end. Like all this stuff doesn't scream relevant and up to date. In fact, there's not really anything short of like these wires, I think, maybe go to a radio and like a small radio antenna, which doesn't make a ton of sense for being outside the airport. And like, yeah, it's kind of weird because this wire crosses in front of that building, but then these wires that crosses behind the chimney there, you can see. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that wire crosses behind the chimney, but then this wire here steps in front of the building and even comes off of that box, which is just like a tiny piece of wood kind of bound up in that. I don't really know what's going on there. I think that is concrete that is molded in wood, like molded in a wood cast, giving it kind of a wood texture. But like right there is just straight up, it's just straight up like a railroad tie hanging out in the telephone pole there. Telephone poles are interesting, but I'm not going to pretend that just because I can sit here and figure out interesting things to say about them means that like that makes it an interesting element of this photograph. I'm not over the moon about this picture, just to tip my hand a little bit, but just trying to explain my thought process of how I arranged this one in particular. It's like a nice moment down here with I just like that shadowy brick that still nonetheless has detail, but kind of has those nice silhouettes of the shoots of the bush coming off. This to me is like that is a classic Virginia, probably an invasive species of some sort, just some kind of unchecked bush. I think this whole building right here is abandoned. I don't recall what that building is per se, but like I'm pretty sure maybe it was an old fire station or something, but I don't think it's in use anymore. So this bush is like, that is just a very prototypical thing in Virginia where it's like largely, it's not like quite kudzu level, but I used to have in the house that I used to live in, we'd have bushes like this that just sort of like, if you let them grow for a whole year, they would like be up above the roof line of the house practically and like grow over my sidewalk leading up to my house. So you really want to cut these things back. And this one, just assuming that it's next to an abandoned building, just went absolutely nuts. And so just the sense that like this is almost an explosion coming out of the lower left half of the frame. It's like starting to engulf the building, obviously about to engulf this emergency alert siren. There's really not a lot of like chipper stuff in this image by any stretch other than the nice blue sky, but kind of a nice fold of layering here. We have nothing cuts in front of this telephone pole, but then you have the bush, then you have the building, which are roughly flush with each other, and then steps back into the alert siren, and then the clouds and the obviously distant background. So there's stuff going on in this picture. There's stuff going on in any picture. I could talk like this about pretty much any picture you'd care to send me. which, maybe would be fun to do if you want me to talk about your pictures. Give me a ring. My email's in my bio or whatever. So that's another bus stop picture. Yeah, and obviously it should hopefully go without saying every time, but every one of these pictures was taken at a bus stop in the GRTC system. So kind of like touch the bus stop in some way, like a foot on it or something, lean against it, and then find a composition to make. So any one of these pictures could be, any one of these scenes could be viewed by stepping off a bus at the GRTC and taking a gander. So thanks for listening to me talk.